Did you have proper songs then? I mean, did you
No
wrote?
songs. It was just
What
like...
did you do then? Just make noise?
Well, it was just like we'd start a beat and it'd be like... And then someone would be playing the bass and it'd be like bump, bump, bump. And then the guitar would start and there was no vocals and it would just be like a dance. You know, it would be like a groove that we'd all play on for like 40 minutes, the same thing.
Okay.
And it obviously kind of, it could get quite self-indulgent and quite boring, but then someone else would come in from the street and just pick a guitar up. And then it would, you know, it never really sounded that great. But then after that was when we started practicing as a band and then started writing songs.
And because of the good experience you had, you thought, well, this is actually pretty nice to work with these people. And then you started to...
Yeah. Well, we were friends anyway. Like, it was a project that I started. And then because I knew friends who played instruments, I asked them to come along with their instruments.
Okay.
And then it slowly evolved to being a band, and then it just became the four of us who were in the band. And then we started writing songs, but that was about a year later.
Okay.
Like, it was a much slower sort of genesis because we didn't really plan to be a band, really. We were still art students at that point, just making artwork. So.
Can you, well, do you have the notion when you first had the feeling, well, now we're actually Shitdisco and now we're getting, well, a band, a tight unit?
Yeah.
Do you recall maybe one special, I don't know, rehearsal gig or maybe drinking in a pub or?
No, definitely. It was really clear. It was really obvious because after that we began rehearsing we actually rehearsed in these toilets in the art school. A friend of ours used to run the kind of bar there at the art school, and they had a spare room, and you had to go into the toilets to get into the spare room. And so she gave us the key for that, and we used to store our equipment there. And then we just started rehearsing, and then we had to leave that, and we moved to our drummer's flat, which is called 61, which is actually just the address of it. And then we started having parties in his flat, and we started playing at the parties, and we were just the only band who'd play in his living room. And the parties were full of like hundreds of people because it was a huge flat. And they just got known as 61 parties or like Shitdisco parties. And then that was when we realised we were becoming a band. We'd been playing at it for a while and we'd been writing songs, but we weren't really taking it seriously at all. It was just like we'd pick the instruments up at about 2 in the morning and start playing. And then, because the whole street was at the party and the neighbours were there, no one really minded about the noise because the whole building was in the party. And then the parties got more, like they got busier through word of mouth, and then we started doing actual live gigs.
So was it for you, the name Shitdisco, was it already while doing those projects, I mean in school? Then you actually picked the name Shitdisco already?
Yeah, the name was the name of the project rather than the band. And the name was like...
How come? Because you don't like disco? Or
no, I really like disco. It was just that it was a really... It was like... The shit element was that we didn't know what we were doing, we couldn't really play. And we could actually all play guitar and play drums and play bass and sing, but we hadn't written anything. The whole point was that it was almost improvised. And then it evolved really slowly, but the disco element was, like, it could have been anything. It could have been, you could have called it dance, or you could have called it like bad disco or something, or like DIY disco, but I think it was just, the name seemed to be like, it was just stuck for the project, and then we kept the name as the band. And then someone asked us, it was quite a while afterwards, asked the name of the band, and everyone was like, we actually haven't even got a name, we just called it that. And then obviously it definitely like informs the way we play music. But
so you like the name now?
Yeah, I think we would never have chosen it if we decided to be a band. We wouldn't have chosen that name, but it pretty much is a good description of how we sound live. On record we're slightly different, but live it's definitely like kind of, there's a disco element, a dance music element, but then there's also like this really sort of fundamentally quite shit element. It sounds like it's going to fall apart a lot of the time because it's so fast, and it's kind of, it's like that peak of like when you really like dancing, or you've been sort of dancing for a long time, and it's like I could go on for ages or I could just collapse now, and it's a bit like that with our music, I think, and that's why the name's quite appropriate.